Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Paint Desk Rumblings. I'm joined tonight by two wonderful guests. We have, for the first time on the show, the founder of Veil of the Ages and the mastermind of Essence of War. It's Piteglio. How are you doing?
Good evening. Big pleasure to be here. I'm really happy. I'm really happy to be on this show with you guys. It's a big honor. I'm a fan of the show, and I always feel guilty because I'm very bad at doing the painting, but I love the rambling. So
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. We're very happy to have you on, and I'm glad to hear that you're a fan. Also with us is the champion of the miniature library and the right-hand man of the Essence of War team. It's Remy77077. How are you doing?
Evening, yes, also very glad to be here, and very well done on the name. Get the full number sequence in there. Oh, very good, very good. But Remy's good as well, and obviously Agona's my other blogs and Twitter name and things like that. It's all good with me. And I was going to say big shout out to my the people who I work with on those teams as well, because obviously Piteglio is the Essence of War guy as well, and also Little Joe as well. I need to give him a shout out because he's always great, always helping us out in the library team with all that kind of good stuff. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we sure have an awesome community filled with wonderful people. That's no denying it. All right. So if you haven't guessed it, the topic for tonight is going to be Essence of War. That's what these two gentlemen have in common, for sure. Essence of War, or full name, the Ninth Age Quickplay Essence of War, is of course a fast-paced and easy to learn fantasy game set in the Ninth Age, a cousin of sorts of fantasy battles. If you wouldn't object to that definition.
I like that.
But before we get into all of that, we of course have the hobby spotlight. So let's start with Remy. What are you working on?
Yeah, so well, I say I've got my paint, I've got my desk, so I'm rambling away, so it's all good. Yes, so I'm painting a number of Goblin Wolf Raiders, or Wolf Riders, or whatever, Goblin Raiders, how you want to call them. I've got a bunch of models, and they are to do with. There's a bit of a tie-in here with Piteglio as well, but yes, this first guy, this is a wolf from First Legion. A resin model. This guy's nearly done, to be honest.
Nice.
But I'll also be painting the goblins to go on top of them. And that was First Legion. This guy's from Black Tree Design, a metal wolf model. And to get all the material, I've also got a plastic wolf model here from Oathmark, or North Star Military Games, I think is the full name of the company. But yeah, the colloquially known as the Oathmark Goblins, because they're also for that game system, but they work great for the Ninth Age as well. So yeah, and that's another wolf. So, and I've got a rider for each of those companies to put onto those walls and finish painting and then glue onto those wolves. That's my hobbying for this evening.
A whole wolf.
Currently mixing my secret recipe for goblin skin that I can't reveal. So part of people who ask nicely.
At the end of your drink, I'm sure that you're going to be spilling secrets like this.
For sure. No, that's excellent. A very nice wide selection of both wolves and goblins there. I'm excited to see the result. Wolf Riders is kind of a unit that I want to expand myself. I only have like the super old Games Workshop models myself, but yeah, could be cool.
You want me to start rambling? Just get me started on wolves, because you probably know.
Library alert.
My favourite thing to paint is wolves. I'm not kidding. Like, even more than orcs and goblins, believe it or not.
Yeah, I mean, I have no trouble believing that painting animals in general I find very soothing. It's just a nice thing to do. So, moving on. What about you, Piteglio? What are you working on?
Well, I have to say that I'm being a bit parasitic in this respect. I'm not painting anything of my own, but maybe I can show you this little window here where maybe Remy is going to recognize one of his own miniatures. And actually, I think it looks like a goblin. you might recognize some sort of weapon, but as Remy said, he's managing to put wolves all over the place. So I think that this goblin here has a wolf cape over there. Maybe you can see the in the 3D rotation. This is just a point cloud, so it's not the model being remeshed yet. You cannot?
No.
No?
Can you see Remy?
That's
I can see it all, yeah.
Oh, this is a new problem then.
See that?
Oh no.
This would be the okay. So you meant that you cannot see the window. You didn't mean that you cannot see the wolf on this model.
I can't see the window.
Yeah. All right, that's a very strange one. I'm presenting to everybody, and that's what it says over here.
Yeah, it says that you are presenting, but
it still doesn't show exactly what it is that I'm doing. That's fun. Okay.
Again.
Well, then maybe I can go with the whole screen, possibly. And let's do the entire screen, and then allow. Maybe it's gonna work now.
Yeah, now I can see something.
Oh, okay, very well. So it's not the screen mode. So you're seeing that's you can see a point cloud of a small archer with a shield on the left arm, but there's crucially also a wolf head or a wolf pelt behind the miniature itself. And so this is something that, for the moment, looks very strange because it's just a cloud of points. But at some point down the line, it's going to become an entire miniature that can be put into Tabletop Simulator, or maybe some other video game, something like that. Which model is this, Remy? Which company?
I recognize that one exactly. That one. That's from First Legion as well.
First Legion as well.
Yeah, I was in the Kickstarter for Orcs and Goblins models, but they are all available individually now as well. So I use him as the champion of my Goblin Archer unit because I love that wolf pelt, of course. That's champion to me, like a wolf pelt. So.
Nice. Actually, was wondering a little bit, Piteglio, what is it? I mean, you take a video or as a series of pictures of that model. I mean, it's the same thing. And then you import it into that.
Exactly. That's the it's a relatively simple procedure once you have worked on it for a year or two. And so what Remy has been doing, he has been putting his miniatures on a Lazy Susan, on a rotating display. Let's call it a rotating display. And
you're saying Lazy Susan.
Yeah.
Yes. Or okay. You talked about this on the Mad Kid radio before, and I couldn't make out what you were saying, so I was really confused about that. But I did understand what you were meaning. But now I know the word as well. Lazy Susan. Okay.
I recently watched this last season from BoJack Horseman. I don't know if you watched the show.
I've seen
this
the
animation show.
First series.
Yeah, and so towards the end, they go all crazy about this restaurant, which is based heavily on using Lazy Susan for the rotating plates. But I think that you would call it a rotating display because Lazy Susan has a very, alimentary, like food oriented type of usage, right?
Yeah, no, that would be like a large thing for putting food on usually. But yeah, it's actually the rotating display I used to send you videos is actually specifically for models. So it was I got it in Hong Kong of all places as it happens. So
oh, nice.
I was looking at actually like anime model kits, that kind of thing was what it was. They were using it for in shops, and I was like, that display is really cool. Like what? And they sold the stands they were putting in the displays in the shop window. So I was like, I'm going to buy some of those because they're quite cheap. So, and it's like solar powered as well, so it doesn't even use much battery or anything. So it's really cool.
Yeah, shout out to all of the followers and the audience from Hong Kong. Send us rotating displays.
I mean, you could probably get them from somewhere else.
But do that. We know they're cheap over at your place. So.
I just never seen them before, and I was just using them for like just displaying some models around my house, and then I just had that idea to take a picture of a rotating model. Nothing to do with Potato actually. It was years ago. I just did a video just for fun to see if it would work, and then you saw that I think, didn't you? And then ran with it.
Definitely, I mean, it was a sign. It was happening. It was a sign from the gods, you know, that you would do that on your own, and then happen to land. We land on the same team. Like, it has to mean something. And so, you know, just the model is rotating on the spinning plate, and you can take a video of it, and that's the starting point. So at that point, Remy sends me the video, and I take care of all the rest. And in the end, it becomes just an asset for the video game. It looks a bit different from what you've seen. There was what I was doing there at that point was a very initial stage of the procedure. Here you can see the final results. You have something from Avatars of War, something from Shield Wolf, of course a wolf, because this is Remy. Anyway, so what do you expect? Is this a Game Zone wolf?
Yeah, Game Zone wolf, that one.
Yeah, so fourth company for a fourth. He mentioned 4 wolves, and it's like 4 different companies at least, of course. And so yeah, this is the way that they end up looking in the in Tabletop Simulator once all the reworking is doing. So that's my cheating painting kind of activity for the moment.
No, that's awesome. As I said, I listened to the Mad Geek radio show, and I would recommend that to anyone listening. It's they did a show recently on the same topic we're doing. And it's well, if you listen to this and feel like you need some more Essence of War stuff to listen to, then that's the place to go. But I actually got inspired by that show, and I started building one of those spinning disc things. But I mean, if you can buy it from Hong Kong, maybe I should look into that instead.
That is interesting. Are you building it yourself? So does it mean that you are mechanizing it?
As I printed a platform with some cogs, and I have a little electronic motor I saved for some 40K project. So
sweet.
I'll see if I can hook something up.
Nice. Well, then in that case, maybe you should have a conversation with Idem from the Essence of War team. And I think he has created his own setup for photo scanning, and he attached an Arduino controller to the motor so that he can control the rotation, the speeds, and the poses and everything. So, you know, in the Ninth Age community, you find all sorts of tinkerers. So
yeah,
you can get support for this type of project.
Yeah, I look into that for sure. Or just buy something pre-made.
That's what Lucky Sixes has done. That's like what Space Goblin has done as well. So that's also the option.
Yeah, but it's a cool thing, and I'm glad that I learned about it. I thought it was a lot more complicated to get stuff into your software.
No, actually, the main point is to make sure that the companies agree to that, because of course I don't want to put anything into the game then a company isn't happy to have in the game. It's like not even that they are okay with it; they should be happy that that we are using that. And so recently I've been talking with the people at Shield Wolf. I think that there's going to be some nice surprises at the horizon, because the people at Shield Wolf are very generous. And also some friends at the Dragon's Lake Miniaturas, who have been doing a lot of very nice counters. So yeah.
I think I mentioned them before on the show. They're doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah, right.
Okay. I was wondering, do you have a list somewhere of the companies that you have like contracts with for this?
So I don't have a definite list, because I very much like having people, for example, like Remy, telling me, "Oh, I have these beautiful things from Dragon's Lake Miniaturas, and do you want to have a conversation with them?" And so it is based on what the different contributors are bringing. So, for example, Lucky Sixes just sent me a beautiful Centaur chieftain, who goes by the name of Krugar, if you've seen the battle reports from the PDGs, and that one is from Legend of Signum. And so, I contact the companies based on whatever miniature you are happy about and you would like to see in the game. So it's more like a way of letting every contributor to say, I have this miniature that I'm proud of and that I like, contacting the company. So,
All right. Yeah. Then hopefully you'll get some requests to contact some companies from me as well when I get this thing up and running.
I can't wait for that, Marat. I've seen your painting, and I would be very glad to have those into the game.
Yeah, that I would be very happy to contribute. So yeah, we'll look into that for sure. All right. Speaking of which, what I'm working on at the moment, the audience has already seen me tinkering with it, but this is what I'm working on. So, bit of an inside joke. I don't know if you remember, but in the Cravenlands campaign, you accused me of putting children into war, Piteglio. But that wasn't, of course, that wasn't, of course, a child. That was a halfling. So that was perfectly fine. But now I am painting up a child to put into war. I am just that horrible.
Please don't let it be that the archives keep that there was an idea that I planted into your mind. That would be
No, I
very
actually had this plan before. So yeah, I'm working on a bit of a war crime here. The miniature is from Hassle-Free Miniatures. I actually got this as a freebie when I ordered from them a fairly long time ago. But it's they have a kit of medieval children, I think it's called, where you get like 4 different children. So I'm painting her up, and she's gonna be part of a little mini diorama on a larger base. But she will be in the Zornstahl army, and I already have it all thought out about how she fits into the fluff of my army and everything like that. So yeah,
nice.
I'm having a good time with her. The rest of her little diorama is almost painted up, but wanted to work on her during this show for those reasons that I already stated. So, all right. That's my little project. We shall move on to the news. And then it's my turn to try and present a screen. That seems to be working. So, first bit of news from Avatars of War. They have announced this unique heroes range of their miniatures, which is and the first miniature of this range is a Dark Elf Princess, and I mean, seeing how the miniature market is developing is really quite incredible. What they have here is a Red Elf model that you can pose in different ways and give different weapons and all that, and then you can either order a print of this from them, or you can buy the STL file and print it yourself.
Yeah.
So you can customize it in all different ways here.
Yeah, this is a very clever thing to offer to the community.
Yeah.
That was the I think the Desktop Hero 3D.
There was also Hero Forge that did something similar.
Hero Forge as well.
Yeah.
So customization is becoming
Yeah, those other ones I saw that I think they were like Hero Forge. They tried to do everything at once. What they seem to be doing is focusing in a little bit more. Here they are doing just a Dark Elf Princess, so I think they get her a little bit more right instead of trying to make it suitable for everything.
Yeah, exactly. Because the point is that you have to create a whole library of matching pieces that you can add to the basic shape. And if you stick with one topic like a Dread Elf Princess, then it makes more sense to do that. Yeah, I see.
Yeah. The only thing that I didn't really like about this is, I mean, they have 5 different torsos you can choose from, but all of them are pretty much boob plate. I mean, when you have the option to choose so freely, surely one of them could have been something different. But yeah. That's maybe as me. Actually, why I like Hassle-Free Miniatures, they have a few really great minis with more reasonable armor.
Yeah. Is it something that you can paint in a way that it doesn't look like
Yeah.
she's wearing armor?
Probably you can. You can work on it, and you can always convert. I've done that with other miniatures.
Yeah.
So, but yes, a little bit annoyed that when they had the option to give you so many
Some
customizable
variety would be
things,
good,
they
yeah.
still didn't didn't get that. But whatever. Cool to see that they are exploring new things for sure. So moving on to MOM miniatures, MOM. I have no idea if they are meant to pronounce that way. But they have put up a whole bunch of new minis on their site, minis that they released through a Kickstarter. So this is one of them, a dwarf champion with a gun, and a griffin champion, and a unit of dwarfs. Just some examples, but there are more stuff on the site that's new.
Nice.
I actually have a few of these miniatures myself. I supported a Kickstarter, and yeah, I can vouch for the quality. It's pretty nice resin models. They have a pretty unique style, I think, this company. But yeah, if you like it, then it's awesome.
Yeah, I've got a few MOM miniatures and really like them as well. The resin ones. They were the first resin models I ever got actually, and they were like they weren't like perfectly constructed. There were some sort of bubble holes and things like that, but I quickly learned how to deal with all of that, and it was the end result was really good, and they're very cheap, most of their models as well.
Yeah.
So maybe they're not the most perfect sculpts like production wise, but like they're very very good designs, and yeah, for the price you've got no complaints whatsoever.
Yeah. Nice.
For sure. Next we have Nightmare Miniatures, who have expanded the Goblin range a bit with a few different things. I picked these out. The biting sticks. Thought they looked fun. I think they could make for some cool madgets, perhaps.
Yeah, I can't remember I listed them. I put them into the miniatures library, and it was a bit of a tricky one to decide what you would want to use them as. But yeah, you've got options, obviously. They're definitely in there somewhere. I can't remember if I put them in as madgets or as like Nasher. Like maybe you could put them as part of a Nasher herd, like because they're kind of like goblins holding Nashers, I guess. So there's
does it look like?
options.
Do you think that that could represent some cases where the prodding got too far? Like you got too precise with the prodding stick and just
got stuck, and they carried on like that.
Yeah. Could be. Okay. And I also want to mention Weird Farm Miniatures, which is a new support company.
Oh yes.
For
yeah.
Stage. Who they do printing of various STL files. I don't think they do any designs themselves. They print stuff and ship it to you from Denmark. Also terrain. So yeah, some pretty cool stuff. I actually found another company that makes STL files for terrain, and was very very tempted to buy a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm gonna think about it a little bit more. I have so much terrain already, but we'll see.
And more impulse buys. Yeah, they also do some movement trays and bases and things like that as well. Some like scenic. So they're all like resin castings, so they've got kind of like scenic movement trays if that's what you're into, and bases that match the movement tray and things like that. So some pretty cool stuff. Yeah, I was chatting to the guy actually on the forum because I was like, oh, you're Ninth Age supporting, oh cool, and so yeah, they've got a bunch of orcs and goblins stuff. Which was
how do you think I noticed them and put this into the news? I saw that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, they got some really cool stuff.
Yeah. For sure, I mean, it was inevitable, but this is definitely a market that is expanding as the number of designers and companies making STL files is also growing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's again, I won't ramble too much about this, but it's very interesting from a library point. It's very difficult from a library perspective, actually. But yeah, it's so usually what you get, the thing you see the 3D designers, and that's actually how I've been listing them, as under the designer name. But then you might have multiple places that you can buy them pre-made for you. If you don't have a 3D printer like me, it's very handy because I practically can't realistically get one in my house anywhere sensible. So I kind of rely on getting prints done by other companies. So yeah, this is really another cool resource. And they've got a few fairly unique ones that I knew the designs, but I didn't know anyone printing them until I saw them in Weird Farm. So it's very cool to see that. But I must admit, usually when you see one manufacturer doing a design, you will probably find more eventually.
Yeah.
Because that means that 3D designer is obviously selling the license to do commercial prints.
Yeah. Then sooner or later, others are gonna pick it up, probably.
So yeah, if you're looking like I try to add the country of the of origin, as it were. So if you're like, say you're trying to get 3D prints and you're worried about postage and things like that, obviously if you can find one more local to you, then that's probably an advantage for price.
Yeah.
But I mean, they do vary as well, like the type of resin they use and like what, all that sort of stuff comes in at the manufacturing end. So they do vary. So I try and put in a few if I can find them. But yeah, it's a vast and confusing array of models out there when you get to 3D designs.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's all I have in terms of miniature news, but there were some 9th Age news as well. Or no, actually, the magnetic movement trace. Don't have any picture to show that, but they have expanded the range of trace sizes. A few different new things that you can get. So that's always cool to hear. Okay, so 9th Age news. The Kingdom of Aquitaine have published the finalized guidelines for designing, which is pretty cool. I've been following that a little bit. Did you see it?
Yeah, I had a look through. Not one I know much about or care much about personally, but in terms of fantasy battle, I care about all of them from an Essence of War point of view. However, but yeah, no, it looked good. Looked sensible guidelines to me, from what I could tell.
Yeah,
I haven't been following the reaction of the community to that. I have to say, it's like I was reading the news post, but not delving into the forum conversation, because sometimes the forum conversation, gets heated and there are a lot of hot heads. But I don't know whether this was the case for the.
I haven't looked into that much for this finalized version, but there was a previous version that published like a month or two ago, and I think people were quite happy with it. I mean, from what I've seen at it, it's quite open, and it's very. I thought it was very well written, and they really describe what they want to do with the army and how they view it. The different parts of the army, like the knight part, the mystical part with the damsel and the unicorns, and the spirits and stuff, and the peasants, and also a sort of new category where the brigands of old fit in, which is like a mercenary category.
Yeah.
So yeah, they seem to have really thought it out well, I think.
Yeah, I think that this dynamic with the with the Fae aspect, I've seen a few people being worried that this can mirror what you now have for the Sylvan Elves. Where you have the regular flesh warriors plus the spirited thing. But I think that there's a possibility of giving a different spin, so there's not going to be an overlap in themes and in mechanics. That they're going to look different. So
yeah, I'm sure they. I mean that's something that the Night Age is very conscious and careful about. So I don't worry that it will be too much overlap. Interested to see where they take it. I do have a very very small Aquitaine army painted. And someday maybe I'll work on expanding it. Although, I mean, it's fun to paint, but it's a lot of work.
Well, that is why we offer the possibility of starting to play the Kingdom of Aquitaine with just, less than a dozen knights and less than a dozen infantry miniatures.
It's funny, I was thinking exactly the same thing.
I mean, that would be the place where I'd start, or well, skirmish would be the place where I start, and then move on to
Definitely, yes.
on to Essence of War. Okay, speaking of moving on, let's mention the new rule book for the 9th Age Fantasy Battles that they released, which is sounds really big, and I mean it is quite big, but it's not as big as it sounds. It's a rule book with the errata and FIQ implemented into the document. Also with a new layout, 2 columns, and a lot of printing errors and stuff like that sorted out. So an upgrade, more or less, to the book.
Yeah, I really like seeing the both the 2 columns aspects. This is something that for our own documents, I think that this has brought a big improvement in the way that the document reads, and also the fact of incorporating the errata. I mean, I can understand the amount of work that has had to to be, also because the old version with the separate errata is still maintained, so that's still a thing, so that people can choose what they want to have. So it must have been a big headache for the layout people.
Yes,
so
I did notice some discussion about this in the internal forums beforehand, and I mean there was a lot of discussion and a lot of options, and they really thought it through, and I think they made a good solution in the end.
Absolutely, I think that this decision is gonna shine the moment that that the team is gonna produce the full rulebook, the color version, because the idea also, just wearing the company hat for a second. The company CEO hat. I think that if I had to print in offset a large number of copies of the base rulebook for the 9th Age Fantasy Battles, and I knew that the errata were a separate document, that would have been so annoying. It's like, who would want to print in offset a color version of the book when you know that you have to integrate it with a separate errata document? So that was a clever choice, both in terms of the experience from the point of view of the players and thinking about what the communities can do with the companies can do with the 9th Age. So I respect all the more the work that has to go into that from the layout point of view, because the advantage is down the line and the work is right now. So
yeah, for sure. Some great foresight there. Also released is an update to the Dread Elf book, the second alpha release of the Dread Elves. Did you see this?
Yeah. This gave us a headache, of course, because
you have to take it into account for Essence of War. Is that what you mean?
Right, it's like the adaptation of the book to the small patrols is a chiseling type of work where you try and make everything work, and then the new version comes and you go like, okay, so we have to revisit all the things that we said, and but it's fun, it's part of the job, and it's done to improve on the quality of the book itself, so it's very welcome. I don't want to have tunnel vision on
that. I understand that the community seems to be quite upset with the new book. I haven't really looked into that much. It's not an army that interests me, even less than Aquitaine. But the thing that I did notice was that the repeated crossbow was changed from having 1 shot long range and 3 shots short range to always being 2 shots. Which I understand is a lot more easier to balance, but I mean, it's so boring. But whatever.
It is true that I liked a bit better the more audacious version of having the 3 short range shots, even if that was banned from an Essence of War point of view. But that was fluffy, It was I liked having this unit of auxiliaries which could be lethal at short range and then still put up a good fight. As a traditional highborn player, for me, having a core unit that can shoot and also have shield and parry and light armor, that was like a big desire. I've always been jealous. I'm not gonna say that because a highborn would never say that, but I always saw the merits of having that type of core units, and so I like that. But whatever.
Yeah, I still think they are a very good unit. But a bit sad to see that creative design being made less creative. All right, I think that's it for the news. Maybe I'll bring up again the Madgit Radio show about Essence of War. It was a good show.
Yeah, they're great.
So I'll include that in the show note as well with a link if anyone wants to check it out. But should we dive into the Essence of War then instead?
Excellent. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. The main topic of the show. So let's start with a quick summary of what it is. Do you want to take that, Piteglio?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you said it very nicely. It's the cousin of fantasy battles, or maybe since it's a bit smaller, maybe it's the child, or maybe since it's the origin, maybe it's the grandfather, stuff like that. It is definitely related to the Ninth Age fantasy battles in that it gives you fantasy rank and file battles. So it's not skirmish. It does give you that feeling of dealing with units and with regiments. I would say that's the main thing. But at the same time, we've tried to make it very easy to learn. So I think that right now the basic rules are more or less around 20 pages altogether. And each individual army list is only 1 page long. So it's really meant for fast games. I think that a reasonably experienced player can play a game in 1 hour, for example. So that's why the name of the product family is Quickplay. And also, this is you can see the difference with respect to the previous iteration of this simplified rule set, which was called Quick Starter. And Remy was suggesting that Quick Starter is emphasizing the aspect that you play this game if you are on your way to learning fantasy battles. And with Essence of War in this family of Quick Play, we don't want to send that message only, because the idea is that you can use Essence of War to play battles, even if that's your system, if that's the system that you play, not just as a stepping stone towards fantasy battles. So we also have on top of this 20 pages for the basic rules. There's some 10 pages of advanced rules. And those 10 pages, they simply allow you to jump into roster building. You make your own list. You select from different possible units and options for those units. And you use them with different scenarios and with different maps. And so in the end, you get a game that's at the same time geared for people who want to learn how to play the Ninth Age, and also who already know how to play the Ninth Age, but they only want to play for 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, rather than having the usual 4 or 5 hours long battle.
Yeah, that's
so,
that's a really good description. And I think it does a good job of achieving that. The name for sure really conveys that, and I think you've achieved that in communicating with the community as related to that it is a game of its own. It's not just a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Which I think is important to make people more open to using it, which will help people get into the game. Because if the experienced players are familiar with it, they will have an easier time recommending it to the newer players.
Yeah, and definitely, the point is that when you simplify a rule book and you go from 100 pages to 20 pages, it's not just a matter of cutting here and there. You can't just simply remove things and then be left with something. You have to change some things so that it makes sense when you scale down. But at the same time, we are putting a lot of effort into changing as little as possible. And the idea is that somebody who plays fantasy battles can still have the same feeling. And then every now and then you realize that there's something missing, that there's some rules that they don't apply at the smaller level, but it still feels like you're playing the same game. So it stands on its own legs, but at the same time the feeling of familiarity is huge, I would say. It's you can transition between the two systems, and we have people who regularly play both game systems, and they don't get crazy, their brains don't melt.
It's oh god.
No, go please go on.
I was gonna say it's fascinating actually, because I think especially like you said about the style of game, and also almost like the approach you need to take, like the style of thinking. The more I've watched, the UK Masters has obviously been running. That's another bit of Ninth Age news, I guess, that I think you covered it at the time. But yeah, there's been a lot of coverage of that, and the more I watch things live and read battle reports and things, it's like the way the players are approaching those games and the kinds of decisions they have to make and the kinds of just things that happen on the dice as well, like the way that impacts the game. It's not that different. Like I was just like, this is very similar to my experience of playing Essence of War, and the games I'm playing and watching of that as well. And it's like, obviously they're all. I'm kind of doing both at the same time. I've not played Fantasy Battles still. One day I will get there, but so I can't truly compare it. But my impression, as a bit of an outsider, I guess, to Fantasy Battles, is that it really looks very similar, like just on a larger scale, essentially, obviously. So yeah. Just I think the approach, the play style is very similar, and I pointed out there's another one of the forum threads, and I did point out about Essence of War that like, whilst it is a standalone thing and can be played as a standalone product, it's cool for some people who want to use it as a stepping stone, that it is part of a bigger whole. So it's not like, because obviously you can play, there's plenty of small skirmish like war games out there. And if that's all you want to do, then you've got those. But if you are interested in the big scale game as well, like this could be more attractive to you because it's also part of a bigger whole. And so when I've got the time to play a big game, I can also play this, and I can use take the learning and the skills I've learned from playing Essence of War, and I'll also be able to play that bigger game as well. So yeah, I think the fact that it fits in as a part of that whole makes it more attractive to some people as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so one thing that I wanted to talk about is are these advanced rules a bit, and the way that you have released the game, because at the moment it's only the basic rules really that are available to play for the community in the alpha version of this game. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that decision.
Yeah, sure. So the version that we released essentially contains both the basic and the advanced rules, but the difference is that for the basic rules, we have one-page pre-made armies, and I don't know if it makes sense that I put those on screen. Maybe while I talk about that, if you think that that's going to be a reasonable thing, I can share my screen. So the point would be that let's do the whole screen, allow, anti-screen, allow, and then click on this thing. Yeah. So when you play with the basic rules, you play with one of these patrols. We call them these pre-made rosters, which have one character and 3 units, and everything is already chosen for you. You already know which miniatures you're gonna have combined in which units, the special rules, the spells, and everything. And we have offered a number of different patrols, like the Ogre Cans, and we also had. Oh, I'm showing you the ones that that are in the work in progress version. So we had the Demon Legions. These two are new, and then the Ogre Cans. This one is new, and so on and so forth. And however, in the alpha document, you also find the rules to play the advanced version of the game, and the only difference is that this advanced version, with all the bestiary and the different lists of spells, that one is meant to be played with army lists, so not patrols where you already are kind of, let's say, invited to use those specific units. But in this case, for example, for the Ostlanders, you can see that there's 2 characters, there's 3 core units, and then there's 2 special units and 1 support unit. So the idea is that all of these have points, and you can say, I want to have 2 units of these and 1 unit of those, for example. So the difference is that in the version that we released, we only have 1 army list for the Ostlanders. And we have a larger number of patrols for the basic version of the game. But that doesn't mean that you cannot play advanced right now. You can play the advanced version of Essence of War right now, but it has to be Asklanders versus Asklanders.
True. Which I think is a fairly common matchup in the world of Ninth Age. They are a pretty warring people.
Makes sense. So just to say, the material is out for people to have an understanding of how things will work out. So if you want to flip through the pages and imagine what type of game you can have, then that's possible. The difference is that a patrol is only composed by 4 units and an army list is composed by 8 units. And a patrol comes with no options, and each unit in an army list advanced comes with 3 options. And a patrol comes with no point costs, and each of these 3 options for each of these 8 units in an army list, they all come with point costs. And so the point was that as a team, we had to decide, either we put energy into releasing decent and tweaked and play-tested advanced army lists, or we try and nail the basic rules and the patrols. And the second avenue is the one that we chose because we wanted to know that the mechanics of the game made sense.
Yeah, and I think that was the right approach. One of the issues I had with the Quickplay or Quickstarter back in the day was, and I think this was like directly caused by the 2 systems, the advanced and the basic, being released at the same time. Is that when I opened it, I immediately thought this basic version, I mean, that's too simple for me. I'm an experienced player. So I went for the advanced version directly, and I think that was a mistake.
Yeah. And as a player, definitely, but as somebody who's behind the writing of the rules, even more so. Because you want to have the time to focus on the basic stuff and get the right. I mean, it's called Essence of War. If we don't focus on the fundamentals, it's like we are betraying the name of the whole thing, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good approach.
Yeah, it's a question of time and resources to get everything done as well. Because obviously we're a pretty big team, but we're not that big, and yeah, with and like you say, the thing to notice as well is that all the advanced rules all build on the basic rules, so all those rules still apply. So we need to get those right first, because it's kind of like you're going to pull the foundation out from under you if you start, if we'd released all the advanced rules and all the advanced lists, if we'd focused on that and then people playing that and then finding a problem maybe but then we need to change the fundamentals, so now we've got to redo all the patrols. So the whole point is that it's like building blocks of building the rules as well. So I think it makes a lot of sense to focus on the basic rules first, because they apply across everything.
There's some things like, for example, the height system in fantasy battles, where you have standard, large, gigantic, and then for standard and large, you can also have tall. And so you have a 5-way distinction of model heights. And that's simply something that's not possible to implement in Essence of War, because that defeats the whole purpose of making the game fast and easy to learn. And that kind of thing is something that has to be, we have to pilot the hell out of it, because it has to be meaningful and understandable and easy and realistic to some extent, and doesn't have to irk the fantasy battles player. So the amount of energy that goes into that, is not really compatible with understanding whether a unit option should cost 25 points more or less. If we had a huge amount of tournaments for the advanced version of Essence of War being played, then we could use the data-based approach. But we cannot really do that, because we don't have that amount of data. So every choice has to be made by the team, and that means that it takes away from other choices that need to be made at the more basic level.
Yeah.
Yes, don't worry. More progress will be made soon. Don't worry. I'm constantly like, let's get more out. Let's get it done.
Yeah, that was actually one of the questions I had written down. When do you think? I mean, Night Age will never answer this in general. When do you think the advanced rules will be released?
I mean,
Yeah.
well, the rules are technically out.
Fair enough. When will the more advanced army lists be released? And are we waiting for like the vault and stuff like that too?
Yeah. So the vault is in this version that I showed you quickly. It's already implemented, so it's in there. It's almost ready to be. I think that we've done the work that we wanted to do on the vault, so we have it there. We're just trying not to release too many documents, but the one is quite mature, I would say.
And what is the vault?
So the vault would be, I mean, come on. Why would I not do this on this show? Come on. Do you agree, Remy?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, spoilers.
So this is an exclusive preview then.
Right, Paint the Scrambling deserves a first view of this. So yeah, this is what you see. I mean, something will change. The quote is going to be removed. Stuff is going to be moved around so that you have the enchanted weapons to the left and enchanted armor and enchanted artifacts to the right. So as you understand, the vault is the collection of the special items that can be bought by characters. And we have a system where we limit, of course, this privilege, this absolute privilege of holding an enchanted item. So each character can have up to 75 points of enchanted items, and you can take only one weapon, armor, and artifacts. And so I'm not going to go into the detail here, but the point is that you have enchanted weapons, you have 5 of those, you have 5 enchanted armor, and then you have 10 enchanted artifacts. And so this is something that you can use to, pep up your characters, make them a bit different, and create armies that that feel different. Now, the idea is that in the advanced army lists, you will get the possibility of having 1 spellcaster and 2 non-spellcasting characters. So that means that if you want to max out on the special on the enchanted items, you can have 75 points times 3. So you can have maximum 225 points of special items. So that means that it remains a relatively small percentage. You cannot go overboard. You can't go crazy. You can't have 500 points of special items in there. So it's not supposed to be game breaking. It's more something that we see as a possibility of injecting a bit of variety into the gaming. Of course, they're going to be useful, and we're going to use some of those to mend some design problems. So, for example, we simplified characters in a way that you don't have the possibility of buying a battle standard bearer option, because each character has to fit into a tiny space so that the entire army list can go into a single page. And that means that you will find a special item that gives you the possibility of doing so. We don't have a very large amount of options for the spellcasters, because each character can only have a couple of options in the army list, and maybe one of those is going to be taken by a mount option, and so that means that you can buy an item that gives you an extra spell. So we're using the items in a way that mirrors what happens in fantasy battles, that makes characters more powerful and more efficient and more interesting. It gives you variety, but also mends some of the higher level design issues, for example. And it is very challenging to cram all of this into one A4 page.
Yeah.
Trying to keep some extra space for when we translate it into more verbose languages as well. But that part is kind of done. And so
I mean, the end result is very much like you're getting closer to the way like 9th Age Fantasy Battles army. If you're building a full army list for that works. So obviously that all sounds very familiar to someone who's familiar with fantasy battles, I'm sure. But again, it does all cut down, so you haven't got that reams and reams of information to digest before you understand it. You've only got to read like a couple of pages and go, okay, there's the options, and I think that's a big thing. Like obviously someone who's used to having hundreds of magic items to choose from and a million different unit options, but then you've got to think about, well, what would that really be like? Because I mean, I sometimes experience that. I look at sort of 9th Age, like a new army book, for example, and I've got kind of no grounding, and there's almost so many options, even for like a basic core unit. It's like, well, how big do I want to have it, and then what formation do I want to have it? And now I've got all these equipment options, and now I can choose command guys, and now I can choose a magic banner as well. And I'm like, and they've got this special rule that's unique to like, and it's a lot to take in. Like it really is. So this is just like it's condensing just some of that into. Yeah, you've got some options, you've got some customization, but it's a lot easier to get going. And then say the patrols help you even more because you don't even need to do any of this. It's like, here you go, boom. Just play with these units. And I mean, I like one of the things I like about the patrols actually. So a bit of a sidetrack here, I'm aware, but like it's kind of that we deliberately leave the unit names a little bit vague. We don't specifically tell you what equipment options they are and things like that. So, for example, in the Orcs and Goblin lists, like the unit's just called Goblins and Orcs. And yeah, if you look at the stats carefully and you're familiar with the 9th Age Fantasy Battles, you'll realize that actually these Orcs are equipped with spears and shields, and you will realize that the Goblins are equipped with bows and shields, right? So if you're like a super WYSIWYG, want to paint up exactly the right models, like someone a bit crazy like me. Yes, and like you, Mada, I know what you're like. So you can do that if you want to, but like there's no need to. Like it's like any goblin models you've got will be fine. We're deliberately being a little bit vague on that kind of thing. So and even going into the advance, it still stays similarly like that, right? There is some more customization and things like that, but it's never going to be super specific like Fantasy Battles is. But you can make it like that if you want to. But that's up to you as a modeler. I mean, one of the examples actually was command groups. Sorry, and we actually had a bit of a debate about this in the team, and I was actually kind of strongly against including rules for command options in units, and actually because I want to be able to model them, right? Because as soon as you have command groups, like we're talking about standard bearer, musician, and champion, right? As soon as you have rules for them, you then have rules for not having them. Right. And therefore you may not want them in your units because you have to pay extra for them because they come with some advantages, right? So actually, from a modeling perspective, it's actually nicer not to have them because then you can do either. Right.
I can definitely agree with that.
So this was so we deliberately have simplified that. So it's an example.
Do you have equipment options in the advanced rules?
So no, this is something that that we discussed about. So the point is that I've been perhaps a bit too strict about it, but I
think that my initial thought was that would make sense to not have it.
Okay, so it doesn't
put me off.
Yeah, it doesn't. Okay, it's not something that you find strange, because the point is that if you look at it from a layout point of view, So let's start from the assumption that it's great for a new player to have one laminated A4 paper sheet with all the army. That you don't have to flick through things. You just have one piece of paper and you see everything.
Yes.
If you want to fit 8 units in here, and then you need some space for the special rules and the name of the faction, the logo, and whatever goes in here, this is the amount of space that you are playing with. And so, for example, let me show you the card, the unit card for the Ostlanders here. You essentially need the name, the maximum cap, the base size, the type of unit. So this is core. Then you have the profile on three lines. And then essentially you would have the special rules in here if the unit has special rules like this one, for example. And then all you have in terms of options is this space here. You have 6 lines. And so what we thought that we would do was to offer different unit sizes, for example. So if you have trolls, for example, you can take them in 3 different formations, and they're going to come with different point costs. And so all the design space, and here we're really talking about space on the page. This is the real estate constraint that we have here. It's just limited to this information here. And that's why we thought that we wanted to give players the opportunity of growing their collections and potentially, you know, buying more models and having more models on the battlefield without constraining them to having some specific modeling options. Same thing as the command groups. Yeah. So that's why the customization happens at the level of the characters. They're going to have access to the vault. They're going to have access to the bestiary, which is the collection of mounts. And for spellcasters, they will be having access to different options from the grimoire, which is the collection of spells. So the idea is that so far with the patrols, we're only telling you, you have this druid, and this druid has Healing Waters and Truth of Time. That's it, those 2 spells. Learn the game, learn the tactics, learn how to move, how to charge, how to do melee, calculate combat resolution, get the basics right. But then when you go to the advanced version, we want to give you the option of having different spells and maybe buy a special item that gives you access to yet another spell and combine all these possibilities with mount. So the guiding principle is that if you want variety, if you want an amazing amount of customization options, I mean, I like the 9th Age fantasy battles. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. So if you want to customize everything to the bone, that's the game for you. You know, you can play that. Thing's a bit more complex, but in Essence of War, you are focusing on getting the mechanics right, and by the time you play with the advanced version, you also have some options in terms of, you know, 8 units and 3 options for each of those, plus the items and the mounts and the spells. Now, to come to your original question from a couple of hours ago, when is this going to come out?
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to evade the question. I realized that that's valuable information. I want to talk about that too. So we have a number of units, of factions for which we have done, we have available the advanced army lists. And the point is that I think that once we have 3 or 4, then it's going to be valid. People can start, you know, making an idea of how things are going to work. But the point is that we do realize that we can't do this too casually. And for this reason, something that we've been doing, I can give you another paint the scrambling insider view, extra spoilers. Let me show you this right now. So this is something that our friend Idom has put in place. So, well, I put in place this spreadsheet here, where we ask playtesters from the 9th Age playtesting team to make lists, and, you know, just take one army, for example, for the Empire of Sunstal, and just make 8 lists, 4 lists at 1600 points and 4 lists at 2500 points. And so we see what they put in their list. So for example, in this case, Kazandu has chosen 1 marshal on foot and 1 wizard on foot and 1 unit of light infantry and so on and so forth. And then we take all of this and we shove it into this heat map based representation of that, where you can see which units have been taken, how many times, which ones are overrepresented, underrepresented, and then based on that, we can tweak the point costs. So we want to do this. We want to take this part of the design seriously before we start releasing the advanced version. And while we are doing this, we are solving all of the layout problems as well, because as we said, it's quite challenging to have all these things fit in 1 page only. And at the same time, this is giving us the opportunity of working on the patrols and on the basic version. So to bring everything together, I suspect that if the playtesting continues going on quite strong as it has in the last months, I think that in a month or 2, worst case scenario, all the patrols will be out, all 20. And notice that I'm not saying 16, I'm not saying 19, I'm talking about 20. So we just finished.
This is either, so.
Right?
This is me, guys.
Very new news. We just finished yesterday having a conversation with the lead designer behind one of the supplements that hasn't been released yet, and
Nice.
we already have the patrol for that. Actually, it's not even the patrol; it's the army list. It's the advanced army list. We don't have the points, but we already have the choices, and we already have the options for the Central Asia themed faction, let's say, of the 9 page.
Nice.
So I think that, provided that book is out, then all 20 patrols will be out. Same thing for the Verming Swarm. We have the patrol and the army list based on the new book for the Verming Swarm as well. So I think that in a month or 2, the basic level will be taken care of. Only the things that haven't been published for fantasy battles will not be published. We're not going to steal the thunder. And once that's done, I think that it's only going to be a matter of a month or so before people start seeing more than a couple advanced armies.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it, for sure.
Yay.
All right. This I want to lament a little bit the armies that you chose to put out in the first release of the Essence of War, because I mean you did like 5 or 6 armies, I think.
5, yeah.
And you didn't overlap any of my armies, and I have like 4 or something. No, zero overlap.
Look,
I had to paint up some whole new warriors of the Dark Gods, so you could have done that too. It's actually so. There's a funny story, isn't there? Because like every time we kept changing the patrols, and it was like it really screwed me over because I was like, I haven't painted any of these models. I've got to buy new models. Which no, it's fine. But it was really funny because it was like this is like the opposite. People always have this idea that the designers are like tweaking and twisting things to their own advantage. And this is actually the opposite. We kept making everything that I didn't want. I was like, no, stop it. like even the goblins, right? I've got loads of goblins with spears, and we changed it to goblins with bows, and I'm like, that's great, but I don't have any painted. So I've got to go and paint them now.
But I think that there's been a couple of instances where it has been clear that we weren't making things easy for ourselves. So we had things in place. We had things in place that worked from the previous Quickstarter, and we were still trying to constantly put the quality and the well-being and the health of the book ahead of everything else. And this has, of course, generated some frictions because we had work done which was being invalidated for this idea of making a coherent new book. But you know, we've had casualties all along the process, and many of Remy's miniatures have suffered that way.
It's all good. The thing is, if it's Orcs and Goblins, I don't mind. Yeah, I'm just going to paint more of them. They're ones I wanted to paint anyway. I just need.
Yeah, it's a great motivator to keep painting, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I mean, I can ramble. I really like the patrols from a painting perspective. Like, I find it really motivating because I never I've always been, you know, an Orcs and Goblins player for decades, and it's kind of like that's my army I want to collect and paint. And I didn't really ever think that I'd be motivated to paint up some other armies, but actually the patrols has been like, oh, actually not. I'm quite motivated now. They'd be fun, and it's only like the smallest patrol we released so far is Warriors of the Dark Gods, which is why I was like, well, it's like 16 models.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I managed to reuse a load of old models I had, and I bought a couple of new models to you know, finish it off. And yeah, it's just been really fun. And I've actually got on my desk right now, I've got some Empire Sonnenstahl guys from Last Sword Miniatures, which I'm still waiting for their arms because they had a few issues with the postage. But that's another patrol unit that I want to build. And then I've also got some ancient Highborn Elf models from the 80s, and that won't be a full patrol. But again, I got a good set, like a good way towards another patrol there I'm working on as well. So yeah, I find it really motivating from a painting point of view to just have this, you know, small achievable goal. And I guess that's a similar perspective a new player might have as well. Like I mean, I can't claim to be a completely newcomer to everything of this, but you know, if you think about the mindset of a new player, it's quite a daunting task to build an entire army and paint an entire army, especially if you're into the painting side of things like we are. And then, but you know, given this, like, okay, well, actually, I need to paint like maybe 40 guys tops. Like, that seems achievable, like in a fairly small time scale. So I find them really exciting, like really interesting from a painter's point of view as well.
Yeah, I have a few of the patrols I'm curious to dip my toe in. The Warriors is one of them for sure. So we'll see about that. All right. I wanted to touch upon something we talked about a while ago now. We're hopping back and forth. So the choice with the characters to make them to have so little customization on the units in the advanced rules, but fair amount on the characters, which I think is a very wise choice, because it mimics fantasy battles in a way that there you have a lot of customization on the units, as Remy said, but a lot more on the characters. There's so much you can do with a character in fantasy battles, so it makes sense to focus it on the characters.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you know, I mean, I know that you know because you've been a guest on the show. But characters in the Ninth Age in fantasy battles, they are mini armies in and of themselves. Like, you have a lot of pleasure in the strategic component of choosing everything you want, and so you can very well imagine fights between characters on their own in an arena, gladiator style. You know? And they look very different from each other. And so we have for the viewers who might be new to the concept, there's this mod on Tabletop Simulator that you can download for free, and half of the mod is teaching you the very basics of the Ninth Age. Just like, you know, shooting and marching and charging, that kind of stuff. And the other part of the mod is just allowing you to play gladiator combats between characters representing all of the different factions from the Ninth Age. And the point is that if you play with characters at around 500 points, like in that mod over there, the possibilities are endless. It's like having to choose one character from one faction that costs maximum 525 points. The degrees of freedom, the design space is just immense. And so we had a very complex system of polls to, you know, determine which character, and once you've determined the character, which specific setup, and there were always the tree was branching so often and so deeply. And the point is that having had that experience in setting up that type of game, when going back to Essence of War, I thought we need to give players the joy of kitting the character in the appropriate way. And so maybe I can give you, oh gosh, am I making absolutely too many different spoilers today? Come on, let's be generous.
I let you be the judge of that. I think you're making just enough. Maybe too few.
As the host of the show, he is not displeased with that. But for example, this is one that we've been working on really seriously, like this week. It's not
I've not seen this yet, by the way, Madat. So
this is not complete. So don't take a screenshot. Don't start using it because it's still changing and everything. But for example, Beastards, we have two characters, right? Soothsayer and the Minor chieftain.
it is Minotaur, but I'm wrong. So
you would say Minotaur? I mean, minus. It's the. I mean, it depends on how you call the king of Crete. I would say Minos. In Italian, it's Minos, but yeah, what else? But very nice story. By the way, Minotaur, amazing story. I've had this trip the other day, and I was thinking that okay, so let's take a weird tangent right now. Stop the screen sharing. The story of the Minotaur. This monster that's in the labyrinth below the palace of Crete, and you have several interpretations. One of them is, well, Crete was devastated by earthquakes and tsunami. Really, it's like apparently it was a wave that destroyed the entire culture. Let's say maybe 3 millennia ago, stuff like that. And so the idea is, the Minotaur is rumbling below the labyrinth under the palace. That's a clear depiction of the earthquakes and of the dangers from nature in that area. Political interpretation. You have the political interpretation where the king Minos was exacting tribute from the poor Greeks, and they had to send revenue to the rulers of Crete, and then you had the Athenian hero that breaks the shackles and finally makes Greece independent from having to pay the tribute to King Minos. Or third interpretation, the one that I never read anywhere, and I was like, wow, I feel this is the real one. So the tribute that is paid to the Minotaur is in children. So he gets a number of children every year. And I was wondering, it's like, what if the Minotaur is us and the Athenian hero is the cattle? And, sheep think, so that we can have a pen, we are sending our lambs each year to these people. So we are the monster. And, I was thinking this stuff while trying to balance the points.
A lot of deep thought goes into the point balancing, I hear.
I was like, I can't do both things at the same time. That makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense. But yeah, so coming back to the 9th age relevant part, we have the minor chief. And you have two of them. And for example, you can take the minor naked, or with one totem, or with the other totem. And these are limited, so you can't have two of the same. So you can have two naked ones, or you can have one with this totem and one with this other totem, for example. And that gives you variety because this is only one character. And it can also get 75 points of special items. And on top of that, you can have the Soothsayer. And Soothsayer can have a chariot, or can be a master, or can be on a chariot and be a master. So this is all pre-vault, pre-special items. So the number of possible combinations that you can play with is very large, because you can have two minors which are naked, and so you have the brutal thing, and they are all geared for combat. Or you can have a soothsayer, which is a master, so has 3 spells, and there's an extra item that gives him an extra spell, and then you have 2 minors, each of them with a totem, which essentially is another spell. So you can range from 0 to 6 spells. And for something that only takes place into one A4 page, I think that, you know, that's as much customization you can get within this level of simplicity.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Or maybe you can get more if you don't waste time thinking about the legend, the myth, and we are the monster, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, obviously, once we've got a long way to go, right? So this is like looking like way far ahead. I'm just going to ignore all that.
Please,
I mean,
edit this out of the video.
you know, one thing that
Nope.
one thing that interests me as well, like, so you might be thinking, so say you like orcs and goblins, right? I know you're thinking, right? Well, there's so many units in orcs and goblins. Like, how are we going to reduce that to 8? So what we've had to do is actually kind of focus it on like the common orc and goblin units. Like that's one thing we kind of decided to do, I think, so if I'm correct.
This is actually something that I wanted to ask about, and I assume that one of the qualifying factors to end up in the patrol or in the advanced rule is to be a fairly simple unit in the fantasy battles. You're not gonna bring in the most complex stuff from fantasy battles, I guess.
I mean, we can, but we have to simplify it.
Yeah, and you want to avoid that, I assume.
You know, if it's a really iconic unit, even without the special rules, then maybe yeah. But we want to avoid the feeling of, oh, come on, in fantasy battles this unit is amazing and you are removing all these things, and what's the point of having it in the first place? But in some cases it can still be worth it.
Yeah, and there's a possibility, as I say, with orcs and goblins. I mean, and so I know obviously all the factions. It's just that's the one I know the most about. Like, there's a possibility, you know, eventually in the future we'll actually be able to build some more themed lists and things like that. So we might have like a theme list just based around sort of like the cave goblin units, like things like that, and so maybe the classic, and say like different things like different kind of trolls and different kinds of Nash, like and some Nashers, things like that. So we haven't got there's no way we can put everything in, right? So but there is still design space, not in the physical page sense, in the game design sense, that we obviously can do more in the future. Like, this doesn't like necessarily mean the end of it. Like, it'll probably be the end of that particular document going out, thankfully. But you know, there's room to build more things, just like there is with the 9th Age fantasy battles as well. Obviously, people build their own homebrew armies, and then you get in all these auxiliary armies, and so there's always room to expand those options. But again, because the names of the units are fairly generic, like hopefully if you've got an existing model collection, you can fairly well translate it to represent something fairly in Essence of War. Even if it's not exactly right.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I'm interested to see what you picked for the different armies.
I will say now that's mostly out of my hands. As an inexperienced fantasy battle person, I can't really comment on most of that. Most of it, I'm just like, yep, cool, whatever you go with. Obviously, other guys on the team know a lot more about that than I do. So no. I'm more focused on the rules actually, and as we said, one of the things we're doing in the playtesting is to you know, really iron out all the rules, and we've still got more. It is remarkable actually. The more you play, and you get to some crazy, like the amount of board situations. It's fascinating to me if you can, like, from a game design perspective, if you consider a game like chess and how many board situations you can get in a game like chess, but then actually when you think about a game like the 9th Age, even played with the Essence of War rule set, like every single angle, every single millimeter of every single unit is actually a different board position, right? And there's literally uncountable like amount of board positions. And so like the more playtest games we play, we do uncover like odd little situations where, okay, are the rules a little bit unclear here? Like, could someone be confused? Do we need a new rule? Is this getting too, another thing we're always is like, is this getting too complicated? Like, could we streamline this further? Like, do we actually need to remove some rules? And I think this is one that you found when you played a game at that. Was it about the shooting rules as well?
Was it?
I can't remember. Anyway, but certainly, definitely, some players have thought that the shooting rules currently are quite complex.
I think I've written about that. That
Yes, you did, yeah.
checking cover and range and stuff like that is done on a model by model basis, just like fantasy battles. And I think it could make sense to simplify that to make it on a unit basis instead.
Yeah, it's certainly something we're kind of discussing right now.
Yeah.
And I think the next version we put out will stay the same, but we are seriously thinking about it.
Yeah.
But again, you've got to remember playtesting, but that will knock on because obviously that would stay in the advanced rules then as well.
Yeah.
Because that's a core rule. And then we could have a new rule to change it in advanced rules.
Yeah, no,
and so
it shouldn't change between them.
Ideally, it should be a fundamental part that we don't change. It certainly works fine on a unit level. There are a few things that you need to figure out though. So there's oddities like, okay, well now we've got line of sight from the unit because I've like angled and there's one guy standing on a hill.
Yeah.
And that's fine in the current rules because there's one guy standing on the hill, so only he can shoot, right?
Yeah.
But now actually, how can the whole unit shoot? So like this is where you actually starts to unravel very quickly, and so we've got to be very careful with what we change.
Of course.
And also, as we said, although it wants to work as a standalone product, we've also got this design constraint that we need to make it work with fantasy battles as well. So and we don't want things to be different when they don't have to be. So it's a case of like, okay, does this still make sense to someone that's played fantasy battles as well? So that's a tricky one. Like it's really fascinating because on paper I was instantly like, actually, yeah, we should simplify this. I agree. And then actually, the more I've thought about it over the last few weeks, I'm not sure we can and not create ourselves more problems. So you may have to be stuck with it. I mean, the good news is, like in a lot of situations, that rule complexity does not ever rear itself. Because it's you get in like most simple board. Like I've just played a game in real life, Essence of War, although I wasn't playing it. It was a bit weird. We'll talk about that later if you want. But like all the shooting in that game was very, very simple. There was one unit with bows, and there was a unit running towards it in open ground, and it's just, what is the range? Like, have you moved? Are you long range? Like simple. All the guys are in range, or all the guys aren't. Like, but there are these situations where it's like, okay, actually only some of the unit can see, some can see, but there's cover, and it does get complicated for that kind of thing. But I mean, I guess in terms of scale of the game as well for Essence of War Advanced, we're talking. I know the point system it's going to be similar to Ninth Age, if that's right, Piteglio. So, but
by point system, you mean for the victory condition, or you mean
the actual points costs of the units? Like they're comparable. They're not exactly. You won't see exactly the same points cost for the same thing.
The main thing is that,
like, if you say a 3,000 points army in advanced would be about the same size as the 3,000
exactly. Yeah, that is true. Yeah,
they're roughly the same scale of point system.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So again, but we're only aiming this to be played on a smaller board as well at this point. So as soon as you get up to playing bigger games and things like there's nothing to stop you, but like that's not what we're aiming at this point.
I think that 1600 would be my favorite, target for balancing, because of the size of the board, because of the ease of saying 25% core, for example. And we also have increments of 25 points for each of the, you don't have something that costs 310. It's either 300 or 325. And so, yeah.
All right. Speaking of changes, I something that I wanted to bring up is like an old pet peeve of mine that I'm sure you're familiar with the advanced rules, and an idea I had and I presented, I think, 2 times to the team, with putting the whole magic into, or rather, no, I'll approach this from the other direction. One of the issues that I've had with Quickstarter in the past and it is a thing that remains in Quickplay in Essence of War, is differences between units that are same in the name and everything in the basic rules and advanced rules, but they have slightly different rules. And the main offender here, and possibly the only offender, are the Swift Stride and Stomp that is built in the model classification in fantasy battles and left out in some cases in Quickplay basic, but always included, I think, in advanced.
Yeah.
So the idea I had was to put all of those rules into the basic game as well. Maybe not as a model classification, but have them on the sheet for every time they are used. And to pay that complexity cost, you would push out magic from the basic rules. Was my idea.
Yeah.
But I've completely changed my mind on that.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I was ready to fight on this
I
hill, and
Right, my corner. I know you're
Alright.
in my corner. Oh, okay.
You were all on the edge of your seat, like.
I was like, oh man, no, because I see the merits of his point of view, but at the same time, I still think that okay,
Yeah,
good, excellent.
And the reason that I changed my mind on this is, having played a few games, the magic of the basic rules is so important.
Yeah.
It not only helps it mimic the fantasy battles and the advanced rules to have that phase in it, but it's actually a really interesting phase for the game, and it's important to keep all the steps of this game interesting.
Yeah, it's great, because I agree with that. Magic does something that no other phase does.
Yeah.
And you would, having a faster cavalry makes sense, of course, but it also has higher advance and march anyway.
Yeah.
And having Swift Stride the way it works in the fantasy battles, or even just in the advanced version of Essence of War, makes sense. But at the same time, it's something else that you have to keep in mind when fleeing. Does it apply when you charge and this and that? So it also applies in my turn and in your turn if I flee, for example. So that's kind of adding extra things. But Magic is doing something entirely different, and it would be a pity to lose that. And on top of that, we busted our backs to try and fit it all in one page.
Yeah.
So, if you make the effort of making it playable, even at the very low level, and that brings you a lot of fun and interest and, a mini game within the game, then yeah. So, wow, I'm really happy that, that this is something that you are not discontent about.
No, definitely not. It's I'm still annoyed by the differences between basic and advanced, but I understand them better, and I definitely wouldn't want to phase out magic. So, and I think this is an issue that was more prominent in Quickplay, I think, or in Quickstarter, just because of the way it's phrased with this new focus on making it a game interesting for experienced players as well. Because when it was meant to be an introduction only, then it felt like you all these differences made it became more glaring. Now it's a separate game, it's a separate thing, it's supposed to be fun and interesting in its own right, and then it's more okay to have differences, I think. Because you can invest more energy into learning those differences and mastering them.
And plus, I have to say that right now we are in this condition where we are playing a lot of games with the patrols, because we want to do the play testing, and because we want to nail all the, want to hammer all of the nail in the coffin of the basic rules. But the point is that when I see this from the perspective of a new player, I suspect that a new player will not have available all the armies as we do now, because we're playing online anyway. And so we're just play testing all of them, and we are stuck into this basic patrol kind of thing. A new player would probably, you know, get those 16 models for the Warriors of the Dark Gods, and then the new player is going to say, oh, come on, it's like Chosen Knights, let me take 2 of those and add that. So they will want to jump to the advanced play. And so I think that they will move to the advanced play, and then they will probably only play the advanced version. They won't be going back and forth between the patrol and the advanced version. They might play with the patrol every now and then to introduce the game to somebody new, for example, and at that point, you know, you have it on the A4 and you are teaching the game. When you are in the modality of teaching the game and you have things under your eyes, you see that Swift Stride is not mentioned there. And if you make a mistake, thank to the gods, so that the other player has a chance to win because you got confused. And, you know, that's the depending on the teacher, that could be a good experience or not. Who knows?
It's weird to me as well. Like I said, I've never played with Swift Stride, right? So I've never played going back even to old Warhammer things. It wasn't a thing in the editions I played. So I'm kind of like, well, I don't even notice that it's not there. So again, that's not a complete new player perspective, but maybe it's a little bit more. A bit more like that. And the other thing that the thing we've got in especially with the patrol versus patrol basic game, I was reading some sort of not complaints, but, you know, debate about Ninth Age, and saying, you know, it's such a high skill factor, and if you're a newcomer, like, you've got no chance of beating these guys who've been playing for decades and things like that. Whereas actually it's a big equalizer. If you play, even if you're like a super top experienced like Ninth Age player, if you play against someone totally new, an Essence of War, you can probably still play like a good game. Like, you don't have to let them win. Like, but the thing is, there's enough. It's small enough that like randomness is going to actually play a bigger part. And one of those things is actually missing, like failing a charge, which you probably should make, right? But as soon as you introduce rules like Swift Stride and things, then things start to become a lot more reliable. And the fact that your units are quite small, you're not rolling huge numbers of dice, and you can't get things like a battle standard bearer in it. This is the basic patrols levels, don't forget. Things are inherently more dicey, literally. So literally the effect of the dice. So even some of the time, like, a new player is going to win just from sheer like dumb luck, if you like, even if you were the greatest player of the Ninth Age ever, right, against a total newbie. And you could see that as a design flaw in some ways, but actually when you think about what this is for, like, that's actually a design goal. Like, we actually want that, right? So yeah,
especially because you have Swift Stride and Battle Standard Bearer and larger units and more units in the advanced game. So that's
so we're not restricting you. Like, it's something you can go into. So you may see that and you may go, hang on a minute, well, I'd like something more reliable here. Well, actually, now I'm getting ideas how I want to build my advanced list. If you've suffered a defeat maybe at the patrols level because things have got out of control and you rolled some really unlucky dice, it's like, well, how can I prevent that? Oh, this item here. So it's kind of leading players along that stepping stone as well.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Sorry, I can carry. I was going to tell you about my battle I've just played, because it's been really funny. So this was I'm probably going to do a YouTube video on this, and maybe potentially something might end up in the Ninth Scroll about this. We'll see. But I know this goes back to Piteglio's done this in the past as well, and I think this might come back round to the origins of the original Quickstarter rules. Is that right? About trying to play with like a webcam above your table and things like that. So this idea of long distance gaming, right, and especially in this current day and age, like, we're all kind of suffering from the same situation of like, how can I play it? And so one of the things I was thinking of when I've been painting up these patrols, I was like, well, I want to paint up 2 patrols so I could So I could have a friend round and go, do you want to try this game out? Like, here's some patrols we could play, and they're nicely painted models and they look cool, and I've got a nice table, and I'm very into the modeling and painting side of it as you know. So like that's like a real motivation of mine. But yeah, once I got them done, I was like, well, how can I get some people to play with me right now with physical models? Because I'm not like legally allowed to have anyone around my house. And we certainly can't go to a gaming club.
Unrelated to COVID. That's just for you.
No, yeah.
The
lawyers, the restraining orders.
Sorry.
All right.
I couldn't resist.
It's to do with the pandemic, Matt. I'm not that crazy. I'm not mad.
Unlike some.
So, yeah, like some people here. So yes. So what I decided to try and do is I've set up a board in my house, and I've set up all the terrain and all the models and things. And I took some nice photographs. So does anyone want to play? A few of my old friends that used to play like old miniatures games with me. It's like, do you want to have a game of this? And they're kind of like, what? We can't. And I'm like, no. Here's how we're gonna do it. If you're interested, we're gonna play. I'll send you photos and like videos and like messages of the board, and then you can decide how you play it. And I'll let 2 remote people play, because obviously if I played and I'm stood at the table, right, it would be an enormous advantage to be at the table. So to kind of equalize it, like you're both distant, so neither of you can like measure things. Like you have to ask me, like, I want to measure this distance here, like, and make sure you're clever. And
so that brought the difficulty level to +100, because you had to find 2 crazy people who were willing to do this.
well, it got worse because I found 3. So what happened was, so 2 of them decided to play as like a 2-player team. But this was actually chaos, because obviously they were like arguing and deciding what to do. It was really funny. Anyway, I'll do more about it. But the point was, the part of the advantage was because it was Essence of War and it's a smaller board and a small amount of models. Like this actually worked. Like it took a few days to play it out. Like, and sometimes because one of us is in bed and one of us is like at work, and so we can't. It's not just like we're not playing it. We're playing it kind of like it's almost like a play by email kind of thing, like slowly going. But yeah, it's worked out really well, and they've actually got involved. Like they've become interested and they're reading the rules, and then the most fun thing to me has been like how they're picking it up, and just like the kind of things they're asking me and what they're thinking about, and it's just. But the point is, if you try to do that I cannot imagine trying to do that for the 9th Age Fantasy Battles, because it would be so complicated.
Yeah, no, that would be impossible.
But scaling it down to patrols, there's still a lot of things to think about, but it actually worked. Like I could actually do it. So in a kind of remote gaming world, it's been really interesting to play it out, and it's also more playtesting and all that kind of stuff. But it was interesting because they were all quite new players as well, so none of them had seen the rulebook before and things like that. So yeah, all picking it up. So yeah,
nice.
Not a direct answer to any question or anything, but I just thought I'd mention it. So I'll be doing more content on that in the near future, because it was very entertaining.
All right. Yeah, that's a cool like alternative use of this game. And I kind of have something else on that topic, which is something that I've been thinking of, and that is using the Essence of War to play big games, really big games, and maybe not the armies from Essence of War. This would like be a mismatch of all kinds of different rule sets and homebrew and stuff like that. But I think looking at Essence of War and the things that are simplified and stuff like that, and you could import that into playing big games, you could cut the time of playing big games a lot.
Yeah.
Which would be a big advantage, because those games do take a lot of time. So one of the things that I thought about specific was you can't make reforms in Essence War. You have a fixed formation of your unit, and that's it.
Yeah.
And just adding that to Fantasy Battles, that once you deploy this unit, that's it. You can't change the formation. that simplifies a whole lot, and it really speeds up the games, I think.
Yeah.
So
Also, 3 types of terrain features. Would that be something that's a good thing for the large battles? It's like there's the
yeah,
hill, there's the impassable, and there's the cover. Period.
yeah, that could definitely be a simplification as well.
Dangerous terrain,
Yeah,
for example, simplified. The height system simplified.
yeah, the height system. If you simplify the shooting system, that too.
It's doable. It's doable. It's
It
definitely.
gets
Yeah.
that.
And I also think like one way you could do it is to play it from the advanced rules and take those arm lists only, and then maybe add you can take one character from fantasy battles. Who's your general, and he's super cool and has all the special stuff and everything like that.
Yeah.
Everyone else is just a basic dude. So yeah, it's something I've been thinking about trying out someday, because playing big games is fun. It's so cool, but it takes so much time.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Plus, I have to say that with the with this army list that I've shown you for the Beastards, if I max out everything, well, actually, I think I'm not even adding the enchanted items here. You do get to 6,000 points. So that is dope. Don't play that in a 120 90 centimeters battlefield. That's the 3x4. Don't cram.
No, that would
just
be
don't do
great.
that.
That would be
I've tried with 770 goblins on a regular battlefield, and that was a headache.
That sounds like the best game. Yeah, just like who rolls dice best. Just push the things into combat and roll dice.
That was mental. It's like, yeah, so lots of dice rolling. You get a lot of exercise for your wrist in the way approved by the church. Anyway,
Yeah.
and yeah, so you can play with you can get to 6,000 points. I mean, I don't know how much sense the army makes at that point, but the advantage would be that you wouldn't have to readapt the way you have your army in fantasy battles or that. But the disadvantage is that you're stuck with those 8 units. So I can understand the merit of seeing things the other way around, as you say, and doing that. Yeah.
Would you leave the magic at a low level? Because one of the difficulties with the 9th Age, obviously, is that the magic rolls do not scale very well.
Yeah.
So there's obviously there's supplements and things that have helped with that. So it's like I know there's the sort of low points.
Yeah, they have magic
and
cards for different flux
Yeah.
cards for the different point sizes.
and we've got different flux cards again, and then simplified flux cards in
my
Essence
experience
4 as
in
well.
playing really large games is actually quite relaxing. That magic isn't so darn important.
Yeah.
It isn't the end of the world to like it's a little thing on the side, and that's pretty nice actually. So I'm not too. You have to figure something out for sure.
Yeah.
But it's
You're quite happy to limit it because then it also limits the impact of magic on the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I mean, when you play a really big battle, you want the units to be the focus.
Yeah.
Not the solo characters and stuff like that. At least that's my approach. I want the units to be the important part.
Certainly, would be more my taste as well. And that's something we've considered as well. If you look at the changes from the quick starter to Essence of War, I mean, again, as Piteglio says, certainly was somewhat controversial. Like I was certainly originally on the side of like, we've got all this work done, we've got all these playtesting of the old quick starter lists. Like let's just leave that. But actually, one of the issues with the old quick starter was that you had a big impact of characters, right? You had 2 characters per list, and 3 units was quite a lot of them. And actually those characters quite often dominated the battlefield in a way that we weren't too happy with. So actually when you play Essence of War, it does focus in much more on the units.
Yeah.
Right now. Obviously, that's at a small scale, but also if you're trying to play it at a big scale as well.
No single model units. Is that right? I remember that I seem to recall that there was a chariot in the Warriors of Dark Gods basic rules of Quickstarter, and that was super powerful, super agile, and everything. And so I think it's. I mean,
so we
go ahead.
do want to have single model units, but not in the patrols.
Yeah, that's my point.
That's the equalizer. If you want, you can have that for the advanced parts. But the idea is that in the basic game, you essentially win by scoring the objective at the center of the battlefield. And we want units with ranks to do that. Even if it's one rank, even if it's 2 models on 1 rank, I feel a bit, like I'm cheating a bit by having 2 Hold Guardians. And that counts like a unit that is gonna, claim the objective. And it's just 2 models, and maybe 1 dies, but in the end, it's not a single model by default. So it works that way.
I mean, it's even better when it's 1 Goblin Raider that does it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
We have had this conversation because somebody, I mean, it was me. I was having big difficulties understanding how the single remaining zombie would be scoring and the vampire would not. I was like, isn't this deeply wrong? It's like, am I not going to go to game designer hell for allowing something like this to happen?
I think
but then, when you see things from a different perspective, then, it starts making sense and being allowable. But yeah, some strange things with game design, they happen. They're bound to happen. But having a salamander for the Saurian Ancients and 2 characters. In the old Quickstarter list, we had salamander, skink priest, and Saurian veteran. You have 3 single models. I mean, that's gonna break everything compared to a Dwarven Holds army. How are you gonna compete with that? You have 3 units which are slow, and these guys that have 3, and you win by scoring the objective. Chuff, chuff, chuff. End of game.
Yeah. No, it definitely focuses in more on the right thing. More it's often a taste thing, isn't it? Like it's like how do you enjoy like your battle to play out? But yeah, I certainly think it's been valuable in the end.
Yeah.
It does sometimes mean that I think this is a valid criticism. Like we've tried to maintain the feel of the factions from 9th Age fantasy battles, but partly because of the restrictions we're placing on ourselves to keep things simple, and they don't all perhaps match as nicely as they might do. But I do think as soon as you move to advanced, they do start to really match up a lot better.
Yeah.
So you might have a legitimate complaint in some of the patrols. For example, the Emperor's Sonnenstahl has as a wizard as their general, right? And it's like, well, the wizard doesn't actually give any discipline bonuses. And I think it was an Empire Sonnenstahl players as well. But the faction in the 9th Age fantasy battles is very important to maintain your general's bubble and all this kind of thing. And that's like part of the flavor of the faction to them. And it's like, well, yeah, we can't represent every single thing about this faction with 3 units and a character. But we've tried overall to do the best we can. And as we say, once you move to advanced, then you can instantly start to bring back more of that Empire Sonnenstahl flavor.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I felt was maybe the strangest part about the patrols is that every faction is led by a wizard. That doesn't feel supernatural. But I totally understand why it's made. As I said, I love the magic face, and keeping in fighty characters could be a problem. But I actually wonder about the dwarf patrol. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the only one who doesn't have a wizard, who has a fighter instead.
So there is 1 patrol that we have released so far that doesn't have a wizard, and that's exactly the Dwarven Holds. But we've had a lot of discussion about this as well, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Because we are chatty people. In case
I don't agree with anything. I don't agree with anything he says.
And so some of us were suggesting that we should have 2 patrols with no caster and 2 patrols with no shooting, so that in case you want to have a game with no magic, you can decide to have that one matchup. So imagine it's 20 patrols. So 20 patrols means that you have 20 times 19 divided by 2, 190 matchups, right? Out of 190 matchups, you have one with no magic and one with no shooting. And if you want to teach the game to somebody and you think that, maybe they are 9 years old and you want to say, well, okay, then maybe we're going to have a no magic matchup for the very first game, you can do that with the patrols that are in the book. But you have to want it. You're not going to stumble on the 1 in 190 chances. You just happen to have those two patrols there. And also, we are trying to make sure that one of these patrols with no magic and no shooting are going to be supplements. So that, it's even less likely that this happens unless you want it to happen. But I think that, we have to give that option.
Maybe cultists without shooting?
Okay, good. That's a good guess. And yeah, another one with no magic. And you've seen that. I know, probably you haven't seen the. Oh yeah, you're right. You haven't seen any of the patrols from the supplements. We have the armless for the Osclanders, but not the patrol. So yeah, that's possible. And I mean, this thing with the patrols. Again, I really have the feeling that we are so focused on that because we're using them for playtesting, but. A lot of the problems that we see now because of all these constraints will disappear once you grow up into the advanced version. And so some matchups are bad for some armies. There's no way around it. The only way that no matchup is going to be bad for no patrol having one character and 3 units is if they all look alike. Is if you try and cram all of the Swiss Army knife tools into each faction, and if you do that, and you only have 3 units, that means that you are making them very similar to each other.
Yeah, you're making chess instead of a miniature game.
Yeah. It's you are sacrificing flavor on the altar of balance, and I'm not sure that that's the message that we want to send at the patrol level. At the advanced level, yes, we want the game to be balanced, but at the patrol level, people need a chance to get in tune with their army. So if you have lots of armor and another army has no armor penetration, it's fine. It's just this strange combination, but it's not going to be a problem across the board. So there's the balance within matchups is secondary to the balance across matchups. I would say for the patrols.
I think that makes sense. Also in patrol, to my experience at least, you've seen a lot more games than I have. Is that like the power of a unit isn't super important, since everything is based on controlling the objective at the end of the game. Even if like something is super powerful, if it doesn't control the objective, then you still don't win. So yeah, I think that's a good call.
Yeah, that actually adds quite a bit of depth. Actually, it's quite fascinating to me, like how much decision density and like how much depth there is in just patrols games though. It's like, I think Rob from RH World Building, I think he was joking, like he's played like 40 plus games or something now, and like he's not bored of it. It's like, and I actually believe him, because I don't think I would be either, because there is so many things, there's so much going on. Like it's surprising how, and again, that's the thing I think that people. And one of those things you pointed out about the fact it's all about the objective. So there's like a concept of like trying to trade a unit. So if you can draw one of their more powerful units away from the objective, even if you lose that fight, if you take them off the objective, you're actually winning. Like especially if you trade with a weaker unit. So there's all these kind of things going on that like end up being, it's more complex than the sum of its parts actually, and but not in a. Sorry, I'm using language badly there. So there's a lot of get into game design definitions here, there's a lot of things about complexity versus depth, and people often confuse those two things, and they often think, well, actually, so complexity in my definition, which is, these aren't like, you know, exact things, but this is the way I define it, and the way some other game designers do. It's about, complexity is about the sheer number of rules. So you can have like
it's
hundreds
almost
and hundreds and
always
hundreds.
a bad thing. Also, like you don't want to have complexity. You want depth.
You want depth.
Often.
You can want complexity too. I'm not going to argue
there is a
against
charm,
it.
and there are players who loves the Johnny players can actually be really attracted to the complexity in itself.
Some people will just love complexity for its sheer complexity. Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
But most people, what they really want, as you say, is depth, and that's actually like how many, that's decision making. So if you have 1,000 different options on a unit, right, but one of them actually turns out to be the best one 99% of the time, there's actually no depth, right? Because, or very, very little depth. It's just complexity, and that's an extreme example, right? It's not that simple, obviously, in real life. It's kind of like things on a spectrum, as are most things in life.
Yeah.
But So, but that's the point. Is that actually I generally have felt that Essence of War, even at the basic patrols level, and as Teo says, like, I'm a bit too focused on this and things like that, and some of the within the team at the moment, because that's what we're playing at the moment. But yeah, there's a lot of depth there, even though it's relatively lower complexity compared to fantasy battles.
Yeah.
But it is still quite complex. It's like if you compare it to some of the really simple war games or board games, like, it's still like there's a lot of complexity, and especially in the movement phase, as we said, like the amount of board positions is infinite essentially. So
but I mean, another point is that sometimes for me it is okay to have outliers. So in this respect, take for example the Flame Wardens from the Highborn Patrol. And we've seen them, you know, they're good. They have defense and offense 5, they have discipline 9,
and Aegis
armor
4
2,
up.
Aegis 4 up, agility 6. They're not weak in combat. They can be buffed beyond reason by know thine enemy, for example. So they are very strong. There's 15 of them. So that's a serious unit. But there's one patrol that's built like that. And, you know, most patrols are not. And I like the idea that this one patrol is forcing the new player into thinking, well, okay, normally I try and protect my spellcaster, my character. Maybe in this game, I have to try something different. Maybe in this game, I have to sacrifice my spellcaster to chaff that big block so that I can deal with the rest of the army, for example. As long as this is not a continuous theme that's happening all over the time, but there's the one patrol that's offering you that challenge, and then, you know, that you move to advanced, and it's not sure by any means that you're going to have the 15 Flame Wardens also in the advanced game anyway. At that point, it's nice to have a challenge that's different from the ones that posed by the other patrols, as long as this is not a recurrent theme. So sometimes even some apparently superficially dysfunctional things, in the greater economy of the entire rule set, they become a bit more meaningful. That's the hope, at least.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously, I'm, as I said, we don't agree on anything. No, we do. We debate a lot. We debate a lot with these things a lot, though. I'm probably like more keen, like you said, if you wanted to perfect balance, they would all end up more similar. And I'm kind of always pushing in that direction a little bit, but I do obviously understand everything that Potato is saying, that like, yeah, you need to maintain the flavor, and as I said, like, also when you actually try and maintain the flavor of fantasy battles in these patrols, that inevitably leads to some sort of mismatches and some advantage matches and things like that. It's the degree of it, yeah. So we were always looking at, I mean, we are looking at that a lot though, and like if because I always look at it. I know, as you said, when it's two specific armies, especially with a, you know, an auxiliary faction and things like that, and then people have chosen to play that specific matchup because of a limit, because they want to remove certain aspects of the game, then that's great. But for like a lot of the core ones, it's like, well, someone might stumble into it, right? That could just be someone's first experience. So I always think of like, well, if that was my first experience, I don't want it to feel like I didn't have a chance, you know? So that's something we're looking at as well. So yeah, it's like most of these things, it's not like this is right, this is wrong.
Yeah, but also on that point of having a chance, as we said, the randomness is so high in this game that you always have a chance.
You well do. It's funny. I had a game tonight on stream actually when we're playing on the Tabletop Simulator mod, and Veil of the Ages. Let's go. So yeah, we had a game where I'd got really lucky in the first turn and seemed to be in complete control of the game, and actually it turned out there was still quite a number of rolls that could have really gone the wrong way. I mean, as it is, I managed to get the win, but I was like, actually, this is really hard, even from this incredibly strong position in turn one, to I could not guarantee I could win from that position. Like, no matter what I did, there was going to be some significant dice rolls made, and something could go wrong. Yeah, like it's just the nature of the game.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing a game of, was it Empire versus Beast Herd, and the knights charged like the mongrel unit in the first turn of the game and wiped it out, and the beast lost, I think.
Wow. That one, but it could happen definitely. Like
no, the Empire's lost,
and then the Empire lost at the end.
The Empire lost still, so it turned around. So they
with the big swing.
Yeah.
And I mean, at some point when all of the choices are so constrained, and so for example, you know that you didn't write your own list, for example, so you are relinquishing that type of agency, and you cannot claim victory for that because you just chose the patrol, or you just rolled a die, and that was the patrol that was assigned to you. That already puts you in a perspective like, if I lose or even if I win, it's not necessarily my win or my loss. It's just something that happened because I didn't even create this list myself. And I think, so having this conversation with somebody whose channel is called Agonas, that's definitely going to be another room for disagreement. But that's interesting because that puts you automatically into this sort of collaborative mode of play. So you are playing with the other person to create a wacky, crazy narrative or what happened on the battlefield, because this is not the list that you tailored and like, you were choosing, I want this, I want that, and I want to anticipate this threat. You're just playing with the patrol that has been given to you. And so you are more, it's easier to have a good time when you lose, I think, in Essence of War, because that wasn't your choice. You would have done things differently if you could have chosen every single unit of your patrol, if you could have personalized your list with a choice of a special item and so on and so forth. And so I've seen a lot of games where people were genuinely having a good time because there was less of a win-lose kind of thing and a more of a let's see what happens next kind of mindset. And I don't want the game to be this. I want the game to be competitive if people want to play competitively. But it's also nice that, at the beginning you are encouraging more the common storytelling through the battlefield action than the complete being in charge of everything that happens on the battlefield and before you get to the battlefield.
No, I do actually really appreciate that point, actually. So, despite my my inherent competitive nature, I do agree, and like it is nice, and I've tried to have that spirit as well when I play games, and I've definitely experienced exactly what you're describing there. When things have gone wrong, it's kind of like, okay, well that's cool, like chill, like, and also, I mean, these games, as we said, they can be quite swingy, and sometimes also like one mistake can be really critical. But the advantage is the game's over quickly. So even if you lose, like you probably only spent like half an hour to an hour, like because games can be decided in the first 2 turns. I've seen this as well, and it's like if you were playing that out quickly and you weren't chatting and all this messing about, like you probably played half an hour, and it's like, okay, start a new game. Like you've got time, and you just be quite relaxed about it. So, But they say there's still that depth there. I don't know. I've been really, really impressed with how it plays actually so far.
Yeah, same.
I tried to do both actually with my recent battle. So the players getting involved, I joked with them and they said not only can you kind of blame it on, wow, this isn't my list and things, but also because I was playing it, I had to roll the dice for them. So I was like, so if I roll really badly for you, like you didn't have, and like some depending on your philosophy of life and luck and all that kind of thing, it's like, well, you know, but it's interesting because some players really feel like you know, if physically that I'm rolling the dice, then that's like I feel like I've had more impact on that. Whereas like some of us might say that's just odds and feel very removed from that side of it.
Yeah, that's actually a topic I want to do a whole episode on sometime. Like the superstition of wargamers.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, and even it was fascinating for me even as like not playing. I'm like the games master. I'm not actually playing it. I'm just like there to facilitate the movement and the dice rolling and things like that.
Yeah, that's like a whole new
I
dimension
found
to it.
myself sort of the people that were losing. I kind of felt like, oh, I want them to make a good roll here, so I'm like, I'm going to roll the dice a little bit harder, like because like it's really strange how easily you get sucked into that, like that kind of mythology of dice and things. And like, is there a way to roll this that has like rolls higher and roll like it's really strange how that impacts you again, even when I'm not even playing this game, like so yeah, it's an interesting experience that. But then again, also I tried to put like a narrative side to the story as well. So I was reporting it to them, and like I'd give them the reports of like, here's what the dice were rolled, and here's how the battle gone, and here's what the movement was, and things like that. But also, I had a third party character who was on the battlefield, who was this wizard in his tower, and he's like watching the battle unfold, and so there's a narrative thread as well with like how this wizard's like watching it. So it was kind of fun just to write as well. So and so hopefully that drew them in a little bit more.
Nice.
Can't wait to see that.
All right.
You'll see some of it.
So how about we round this out? Have we rambled on long enough? Any final thoughts?
Not rambling.
On the quick start or but now I mess up the name on the Quickplay Essence of War.
Well, that actually is a final thought. Obviously, in the near future, Essence of War will reach a point where it will replace the old Quick Starter entirely. I know there's a valid confusion right now, and we've seen a few new players pick it up and get confused. Because both documents are on the website still. Because at the moment, whilst as you pointed out, we only released some of the patrols and things like that. There is still a reason that someone may want to play the old Quick Starter. I mean, I'm sure you'll be able to go back. Like, you can find old versions of Fantasy Battles if you really want to. Like, I'm sure they won't be deleted entirely. But like from a presentation to a new player point of view, we'd like to get that, you know, clean and nice, so someone knows what they're going for. So it will not be as confusing in the future.
Good to hear. Okay.
And yeah, in conclusion, I would say the main thing, just try it out. If you've been thinking about trying it, do it. And if you've been thinking that you wanted to bring somebody into the 9th age and always, you know, face resistance because games take too long and they require too many miniatures and too much time investment for the rules, give it a go. I've had a great time with people that I know would not have played Fantasy Battles because the requirement was too high, and I convinced them to try out the Essence of War version, and they enjoyed it, and it was so nice to see that, you know, they were having fun in the only way that they could have had fun with the 9th age. Fantasy Battles would not have been fun for them, and this thing instead was, you know, giving them something. So yeah, if you've been on the fence and wondering, you know, how can I get more people in, this thing, just start small and see if they enjoy it.
Yeah, that's excellent advice.
And I say, obviously, like it is still very much flavored like a ranks and flanks game. It's still relatively complex if you look at it in the big scale of things. So, I mean, I personally am under no illusion it's not going to be for everyone's taste, no matter what. But in terms of like you know, if this is to your taste and then they want to get into it, I do think it's also a good stepping stone towards the 9th age, like Fantasy Battles as well. So yeah, no, I agree entirely. Give it a shot. Also, I was going to say, if you want to play remotely over Tabletop Simulator, I did a challenge on the forum, but I think it just kind of got overlooked by most people. But if anyone wants a key, I've been offering a free key for Tabletop
Nice.
Simulator.
Oh,
So if
Yeah.
someone doesn't own it, just let me know. Comment on this video. I'm sure I'll see it. Or Madat will let me know if I miss it.
yeah, for sure.
And I'll send you.
That's
I'll send you a key. You've got to add me on Steam as a friend though, because it'll make life a lot easier. And I'd love to watch you play. That'll be my condition. I want to watch you play. I want to watch you play Essence of War on Tabletop Simulator. But you'll get a free copy if you just let me know. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
excellent. I'll
I'll
put that
watch.
info in the show notes.
Yeah.
Okay, so to close this out, how has the painting been going? So Remy.
Well, I've done a lot of drinking and a lot of talking, and I've done some amount of painting. There's been a lot of ink washes. I've got my Goblin's looking a lot darker right now. He's got a lot of shading on him, but I mean, I must admit, not too much effort has been going into that. Some effort. Yes, they're fully washed. I think everything. Some more metallics are down. Yeah, so they're getting there. They're getting there, and
Progress is
the
progress.
wolves are nearly done. How about yourself, Madat?
Let's go with Piteglio. Do you wanna have you worked any on the model?
Yeah, I can show you that I've completed a few miniatures here. So you can see there's the orc shaman, and he's trying to fend off a number of goblins, and I have a few shots of these many goblins here.
Actually, seeing the not that screen at the moment. No, there. There's a lot of miniatures.
Can you see them?
Yeah, now it's loading.
Quite a number of goblins over here.
This guy's a painting machine.
Yeah, that's good for a day's work.
Look at that. That's this conversation was long, so I had time to fill the battlefield with goblins. There's quite a number of them. Look at that.
It's lovely to see. That's my block of 40 forest goblins in real life. So it's beautiful to see them scaled up a little bit.
All right.
And
nice.
What about your medieval child?
Yes, my little war.
Oh, look at that.
So she's coming along.
That is beautiful. I can't wait to see your miniatures scanned in as well, because this man is a true professional painter.
Absolutely.
I'm a bit of a tabletop standard person myself, but hopefully with some quite nice colours and things. But I really want to see what it looks like.
I do like your painting. You shouldn't sell yourself short. Those warriors you painted were lovely with all those colours.
Oh, cheers. I paint a little bit more. Like my stand. It's usually like simple standard on most colors, and I usually pick 1 or 2 colors per model to like go a bit further on, because
that's a good approach. And that's how you improve without burning yourself out on every model. So yeah, that's good. All right. Yeah, I think that's it. If you've been painting while listening to this, the audience, please share what you've been working on. Should have said that in the start of the show. Never managed to remember. And yeah, I'll put all the links down below. You can check it out. And yeah, that's it for this one. So thank you so much for coming on. You've been 2 wonderful guests. I really enjoyed this. It's been a great conversation. And to the audience, thank you for watching. Let's see you on the next one. Cheers.
Bye.